Good morning. Welcome to the Unity South Central Region Business Mastermind. I am so pleased that you are here with me this morning. This is always one of my favorite classes to share because we're going to talk today about sacred ceremony. And some of you in this class have been through this with me a couple of times. So I want to really kind of go back to how we do ceremony, why we do ceremony, and what the steps are when you're putting ceremony in place, what really needs to happen. So we're going to jump right in, and I will share my screen, and we'll go from there. And I'm going to go back to the beginning of this. There we go. Okay. Please. There. Oh. Well, that didn't work very well. Where are my words? Let's see if I can stop this and start again. That's very interesting. Let's start it from here. All right. There. Better. Ta-da! It just didn't want to move this morning. That's what the problem was. It must be as tired as we are. Okay. Now I can see all you lovely faces. All right. So sacred ceremonies, rites, and rituals is our topic this morning. And I want to acknowledge that some of you who are in this class have taught this subject. Some of you have taken this class before. Some of you I know are in study of rites and rituals. So if you have done this work before, I want to invite you to remember, one, we have people who have not, who are either watching this or will join us. And also, I want to remind you that a reminder is a good thing, right? Refreshing our minds as to why we do this and what the benefit of this is can be really important. And this is one of those classes I come back to every single year because for me, sacred ceremonies, rites, and rituals really impact the quality of your influence on the people that you work with. And the reason for that is ceremonies are experiential. And so often we're on the platform on Sunday and we're talking at people. We're sharing an idea, but it's a one-way communication. There's that we are giving them something they have the opportunity to accept or not, up to them. Sacred ceremonies, rites, and rituals invite people to participate with you, to engage in something, to have a response, to have a participatory level of involvement, and mostly to experience some kind of transformation or honoring or marking of an event, a change, something we want to bless, all of that. So this is a really important time for us to look at this because we're in the season of the year, in the time of the year when we do the most ritual work, when we really start going through all the holiday season. So we have Halloween, which is an opportunity to be with the ancestors. We have Thanksgiving, which is obviously a time to offer thanks for the abundance in our lives. We have Christmas. We move into the new year and we have some work around the dark time of the year. And then we're into Easter. And that whole thing can be one super highway for ministers. It's a marathon to get from this time of year through Easter, and is probably our busiest and most intense time of the year when you add things like end of year reports and all the stuff that has to happen by January. So I'm hoping that I can remind you why this is so important and also give you a little bit better idea how to move through creating ceremonies and some of the different ways that you can apply them. There we go. So first of all, let's just talk about what is a sacred ceremony. It's a deliberate act. It is something that we do intentionally to create space for transformation. So one of the great conflicts for people who haven't done ceremony before is the belief that we are making transformation happen versus we are creating space in which transformation can occur. So there's a difference, isn't there? If you go to the store and you buy a Betty Crocker box of brownies and you throw a milk and an egg in and you whip it up and throw it in the oven, the brownies are good. Maybe put some pecans or walnuts in there. The brownies are good. You can eat them, they're good. But there's a difference between that and the brownies your grandma or your auntie or your mama made that were made by scratch, where every ingredient was put in with love. And there's a feeling for that. There's a feeling for sitting in the kitchen and watching someone go step by step through something. We're actually seeing the love as it's put together, as that recipe that maybe has been passed down from generations is put into action. And there's something about the entirety of the experience when you bring your grandma's recipe out and you use all the pieces. It's a different thing. It has a different feeling. The same is true about ceremonies. What we give into ceremony is the individual steps that we take that communicate to the entirety of life. We're really serious about what's happening here. We're really serious about what we're doing. We're going to not just choose logs for the fire, but we're going to choose the right logs for the fire. We're going to bless the paper that people will write on to burn during the burning release, during the burning bowl release. We're going to take extra steps to deepen our focus and deepen our prayer work and our relationship to the ceremony that we're doing, because it changes things. Because our deeper focus and our deeper intention changes the experience that people have working with us and changes our own experience as well. So it's deliberate work. It's been used for eons across all cultures. Sometimes we think, especially if you're white, of European heritage, we think that there wasn't a lot of ceremony in our history, but we have indigenous tribal culture just as people from any place else do. And indigenous tribal culture, one of the great gifts that has been passed down is the understanding of the worth and value of ceremony. It allows us to connect deeper with our prayer work with the divine. And for some of us, that's connecting outward. And for some of us, it's bringing the holy within to the surface in a new way. Every time we take another step, there's more sincerity and more opening. This is true of the simplest ceremonies, the ones that we know well, the weddings, the birth blessings, the rites of passage for people who have left the planet. The extra steps make meaning within the ceremony. It's also true for other kinds of ceremonies that we might like to do, like welcoming. Someone mentioned on our ministers list, do we have ceremonies to welcome our new LUTs? Very important thing to honor what they've been through. Blessings for new ministers, blessings for new buildings, blessings for transitions between one minister and another, or one building and another, or moving from one year to the next, changing of intentions for our community, new goals, paying off a building and celebrating that. All of those things are opportunities. They're rites of passage for our community, aren't they? It's a rite of passage to go from one minister to a new minister, or to have a change of staff, to bless a staff member who's been with you for 10 years and is moving on. All of those things are passages that our communities go through that can be celebrated in ceremonial ways. There is a difference between a rite and a ritual. So a rite is a passage. It's a movement between this and that doesn't happen very often. It could happen again. For example, it can be a rite of passage for community to lose a music director who's been there for a long time. There's a rite of passage. What does it feel like to go through loss, to go through grieving, to go through recovery, to go through search? There's a rite of passage there that you hope you don't have to do more than once every several years. That is a rite, in the same way that getting a driver's license is a common modern rite of passage for a young person. It's a transition from one time to another. A ritual is something entirely different. A ritual is something we do every year at a planned time. So at this time, you might be inviting your community to bring pictures of their ancestors to place on tables in your sanctuary or on the altar edge or somewhere where they're seen. This might be a time every year that you honor the ancestors. Thanksgiving is definitely a ritual. The whole meal preparation is a ritual. The gathering of family, the plates we use, the servingware, the beautiful big gravy boat, all of those things that we don't do the rest of the year make the ritual a ritual. The things that you put on your Christmas tree make the ritual a ritual. How fun is it to hang those ornaments and remember where they all came from and what they all mean and who gave them to you and why you bought them and where you were when you got them and what they mean to your family. All of those things are rituals, and rituals help us to see the continuity of life. They help us to understand how we got from one point to the next and to see that life is cyclical and that we can count on it. Ritual gives us touch points for the continuity of life, which is really valuable in a community. And so when we talk about putting out your ancestors' pictures or the pictures of those you've lost even in the last year or the last 5 years or whatever is important to you, your animals, your people, your whatever, when your community knows you're going to come back to that every year, that there will be an opportunity every year to remember, there is a comfort that they don't have to grieve forever. Sometimes people stay in grief because they're afraid if they stop grieving, they'll forget. So they stay in grief as a way of continuing to honor who they've lost. When we have a ceremony and provide a place every year, and they see that continuous ritual happen, they can feel comfortable that the time will come around again to remember every year. So it's a real service. Rituals are a real service and can be incredibly comforting and reassuring to people. So there are lots of reasons that ceremonies are important. They add depth to transition. They give us a chance to recognize that we transition in the same way as other people, but maybe not at the same time. They connect us to the sacred. They give us an opportunity in community to belong to an experience and to claim the experience. This is an experience we are having together, moving from one building to another, blessing the building as it goes and moving into a new building and blessing what is coming in becomes something that's not singular. It's a community gathering, a community event, shared experience that creates unity between your members. And it can be immensely healing. Ceremony in pastoral care, for example, can be really important. And I'll give you a simple example. If you have someone who is going through a divorce and they are counseling about how to cut ties, how to move forward, what it requires to make that happen, there are lots of things that can be done. One of them that's really simple and most people are really comfortable with is to bless a candle for that person to bring home and use to help themselves focus on looking forward. So more and more where you were becomes part of the past. and the light to your forward life is in front of you. Every time you light this candle, take your journal out and write a little bit about what you're moving forward into, what you've learned from the process you've been through, and where you're planning to go. Very, very simple, and you could bless the candle by yourself and just gift it to somebody, but it's a really different thing when you talk about it, hold the candle together, pray together, and then offer them the candle to bring home. It feels like taking the sacred with them, like a little bit of you is going with them, and they're not doing this work entirely by themselves. And your reminder for them is, every time you light this, allow the divine that you are, the divine that guides you from within, to continue to move you in the right direction on your path. So little simple ceremonial pieces in an environment like pastoral care can take us places that talking can't. We can talk and talk and talk and talk and talk, but sometimes a flame or the fragrance of incense or sitting in meditation changes things so much more quickly and so much more profoundly. And of course, initiations. When we talk about welcoming new ministers, LUTs, new prayer chaplains, new members into our community, there is an initiatory experience there. And an initiation is simply this. It's walking across a line from where you were to where you're going. There are a bunch of steps you've completed to be able to take the initiatory steps into a new place. It's crossing a line in your life from when you weren't to where you are. So I wasn't an LUT and now I am an LUT. So when it's very simple ceremonies. When I turned 50, a friend of mine came to my house and she pulled out a long piece of gold ribbon and she put it on the floor and she invited everyone who was already 50 to stand on one side of the line. And all of them told me stories about what it was for them to move into the second half of their life. And they were beautiful and meaningful and rich stories about what they learned and what the challenges had been and what the great benefits had been. And when they were complete, they reached their hands out to me and walked me across the line. That is a beautiful initiatory, simple experience that you can create for someone that requires nothing but a piece of ribbon and a willingness to share your heart. So you could do that with members. You could have a couple members on one side and the line and simply send people across and offer them a rose and welcome them. There are lots of simple ways to make ceremonies really important in your community and to use them to create something you just could talk about all day and it wouldn't be the same. So what are the steps of creating a basic ceremony? They're pretty simple and easy to remember. One is you have to have sacred space. You have to have a place to do this. We're kind of lucky because most of us have built-in sacred space. It already exists. But sometimes you want to do it in a different place. You want to do it outside or you want to do it at someone's house. So sacred space, to create sacred space, requires demarcation, a way of marking sacred space. I recently did something where I took flowers and made a circle and we did the ceremony. I made a circle on the ground and we did the ceremony inside. You can do it with stones. You can do it with pillars. You can do it with chairs, 4 chairs, in different directions to mark. We're going to have it happen between here and here. We can do it when we hold hands with people and make a circle. We have created sacred space. We together have said, we're doing this in this space. We're joining our hands and this is where we are to do this, whatever it is we're doing. So defining intentional energetic space for your ritual is a first step. Beginning with a clear intention, that intention oftentimes is set before you get into ritual space. And I probably could have made it your first step rather than your second. What is your intention for the ritual? So when we do a wedding, we're asked to do a wedding. We go and do a wedding and we read the words and we smile with people and we love on them and we go through, we help them exchange rings and all of that. What is your intention for that ceremony? If you're like me, there's probably a hesitation to put a lot of intention into a forever bond, because in today's world, it's really hard to create a forever bond. It takes work, and not everybody is willing to do that work. So it can feel like, for a minister, if you have married 5 couples and 4 of them got divorced within the first 5 years, it can feel like you're not very good at doing weddings. What I would offer you is, we're not setting an intention of what the wedding means. We're simply talking through the wedding. So our intention might be, and my intention often is, may this union last so long as there is love, growth, and safety. Love, growth, and safety. Because all of those are necessary in a marriage. May this union last so long as there's love, growth, and safety. It's not an intention I need to speak to anybody else, but I am participating in a bonding ceremony, and I am holding the energy of that ceremony. And it's my responsibility to intend something as we move through that together. So my intention is, may this union last so long as there is love, growth, and safety. And that works for me. You have to come up with what is important to you in the unions that you do. If you are doing a union for someone, and in the back of your mind, your thought is, there ain't no way this marriage is lasting, do not do that wedding. You should not be doing that wedding, because you don't have the belief in it. And it's not a service, no matter how much they love you and how much you want to be of service to them. You either have responsibility to talk with them about it and say, let's do a little work together before this, because I want your marriage to be strong. Let's see if we can address some of the things that I see that might come up between you. Or to say, I am unable to do this union for whatever reason. I am not available to do this. You're not. Emotionally, you are not available, because you don't believe in it. So check in on your intentions when you do these things. It's not an obligation to do a wedding. It's an honor. It's an honor to be part of that. So we have some responsibilities that go with that. To set a clear intention for anything that we do. What is the intention of your memorial service? Is it truly to celebrate a life that you believe in? Is it to bring healing to a family? It depends on what the reason is. If everyone is relieved that grandma passed because she's been struggling and suffering, then yes, let us celebrate a life well lived. If we are doing a memorial for someone who took their life, it's a different intention. The words will be different. The work that we do is different. The work is to help people find some place of peace, which, by the way, they find a lot of in simple words like, let's not let one decision define a whole lifetime. Let's not let one decision define a whole lifetime. Let's talk about all the things that this person's life has meant. An invocation is a welcoming of the divine. It's to create sacred space rather than space. I call forth the divine heart in this community. You can do that in a community with people who say, I don't want to talk about God. Okay, I call forth the divine heart of this community, the strong, powerful heart that holds these people at this time. You can find the words, but invocation is important to the difference between space and sacred space. What makes the difference is the invocation of something sacred. Your ritual actions are the things that speak to other parts of people's body than their brain. The lighting of incense, which opens up the olfactory system. The music that you play that opens up the ears and the heart in a different way. The candles that you light and their ability to be part of the flame. All of those things, the flowers you place on the altar, the statues and symbols that you place on the altar, all of those things are speaking to other parts of the body than the brain, so that you're involving all the senses as much as possible. And I often think about the senses. What are they smelling? What are they seeing? What are they tasting? What are they feeling? What are they hearing? All of those things help you to have clues as to what you can bring into a ceremony to involve more of the entirety of the people who are there. How can you involve the people? One of the things I love to do at a wedding is hold the wedding rings and invite people to speak out loud a word or two, just one single word or two words that you would like to infuse into these rings that are blessings for this couple. So it could be the gift of humor, the gift of patience, remembering how you got here. There are lots of things, but when you give suggestions, it won't be all of your people, but 4 or 5 people will stand and say something. And that allows them to speak in and feel like they got to offer a blessing of their own into the ceremony. It's very meaningful, not only for them to participate, but very meaningful for the couple and memorable for the couple. And oftentimes the entire community will get a good laugh. They'll get tearful. It's a beautiful thing to involve. So those ways that you can bring a person in, when we're in our sanctuary, we can have them parade across the platform and pick up a piece of paper with a message on it, light a candle, burn away an intention or something that doesn't serve them. There are lots of ways that they can be involved. On Palm Sunday, one Palm Sunday, I bought big plastic palm leaves and I put them across the front, and all I did was have people walk on them and put themselves in the place of stepping into the Palm Sunday courage that it took for Jesus to walk that path. Having some idea, or the rebelliousness even, but you can invite them to simply walk in the steps of a master and give them 1 or 2 hints that allow them to deepen the experience. Wow, is it powerful? So all of those symbols that are relevant to the theme of what you're doing bring the entirety of the person into the experience. And that's really important. Really, really, it's experience that we're looking for through ceremony. We want it to be experiential, not just another run-of-the-mill Sunday or another run-of-the-mill event. The types of ceremonies, we know a lot of these, the common ones: birth, marriage, death, blessing of houses, but there are things that happen at the changes of the season. There is an opportunity to do a release ceremony when the leaves are falling. There's an opportunity to do a birth of ideas ceremony during the time that the first sprouts of grass are coming back. There are opportunities in the seasons to take people into deeper community. The UUA does a lot of UU ministers, Unitarian Universal ministers, do a community flower ceremony where everyone brings a flower, one single flower, and on a given Sunday, each person walks up to a great big vase and puts their flower in. and speaks a word of blessing. And that flower arrangement becomes symbolic of the multicolored, multi-ways that the community is beautiful as a whole because of all of its individual pieces. That's a great end of summer kind of ceremony because we're moving out of the season of petals and into the season of leaves. And these are things that allow people to deepen their connection to each other and to the spirit of community. Healing ceremonies that release grief, Blue Christmas ceremony, really important. What are you doing to help people who are grieving through the holidays? They need it. Somewhere between Thanksgiving and Christmas, that kind of blue holiday season gives people a chance to come together. And that can be simple too. It can have 2 songs, an open mic so that you pray in, you invite people to speak a couple words about who they're remembering and let them go sit down. But hearing each other and seeing each other's faces is really important. And you can say to them, when you see each other in the other ceremonies, be supportive because you now know who is struggling with you, who is going through this time of year in a different way than other people. And it creates a bond between those people that makes it not just you who's supporting them, but each other. And that's really helpful and will cause less pull on you in a time when you are immensely pulled, when there's a lot of stuff for you to do. Community building, again, blessings for new ventures, for new projects, for new buildings, for new people, for growth in the community, for peace in the community. All of those kinds of things are opportunities to celebrate and to do so with gifting and with handholding and with acknowledgement. And personal growth, all of your personal activities. Do you do a blessing for your kids who are graduating, who've graduated high school? Do you do a blessing for them that says, you're off, many of you will leave and go off to college? I one time did a foot washing and blessing in our sanctuary we had 5 or 6 kids who were going off to college the next year. And there's something about like, may your feet guide you true. May your feet take you on the perfect path for you. And may everything that doesn't serve you be left here in the care of the community who will transmute that energy. And may your steps be solid and clear. It's a lovely opportunity to integrate generations and to mark that time of transition in your community. So discern the purpose, choose the symbolism, plan the flow. How's that going to happen? How are you going to move people? Prepare the space. Bring all those things together. Invite your participants and move through the ceremony. And then close in a meaningful way. In the closure, offer gratitude for what has happened. When we speak about our affirmations, I affirm that we have moved from the place of 2 separate human beings into a place of bonded love. I affirm this affirm and confirm the devotion and dedication and commitment that the 2 of you have given each other. I affirm that it is so, I see it as so, and so it is. That closing of the ceremony is the affirmation, confirmation that transformation has taken place. And your words in that moment set the tone for what happens afterward. They confirm what has been done, and they also tell people it is done. This beautiful vase of flowers represents the beauty of our community, allows us to acknowledge our many ways of blessing the community, and brings us deeply into the hearts of one another. It is so, and it is done. And I affirm and confirm that it is so, right? We tell them, we actually let them hear, we speak and we let them hear what we just did. Because everything in their body goes, oh yeah, we just did that. That is done. And now we move from here into the next space. So your closing is more than just gratitude. We often close with a prayer of thanks, but your closing is a statement that plants in other people's minds what you just did, what just happened here, why were they here, and what is the new thought and new understanding that they're moving forward with. So your closing words are really important. Elements you can involve in ceremony to have the impact I talked about: music and sound, sacred text, meditation and moments of silence, offerings. And offerings, I say offerings because what are we doing with the flowers and the fruit and the things that we put up on the altar? We are offering to one another a different experience. I am offering you the opportunity to pick up this orange and smell it, to notice the beauty, to see, to hear, to feel into this moment, to touch and notice how cool that orange is, or to notice the texture of the paper that the sacred text is written on. I am offering you an opportunity. And then the blessings and affirmations that make the ceremony intentional. There are things to think about that are challenges when you do this, distractions. So you don't really want to do the ceremony on the boulevard where the cars are passing, unless there's some really, really, really good reason that it has to be done there. Like I did one like that for a lady who was celebrating the life of a child who lived only 2 weeks. And she planted a beautiful garden in the front of her house so that every time she came up, she would remember that this life had passed through her and would honor that. And she planted everything except the last plant prior to the ceremony. And then we gathered a small group of friends on the boulevard around the garden that she planted. And she planted the last plant with the community there to wish intentions, to pray, to hold her, to support her through it. That's a really good reason to do a ceremony on a boulevard. Otherwise, if you can do it where there's less noise, less distraction, the more people can focus on their ceremony, the deeper and richer their experience will be. Emotional overload is a real thing. It's a real thing. You can do a simple ceremony, like a tea ceremony is a good example. You can do a tea ceremony where you bless tea and everybody drinks tea together and shares a memory in life about a topic or something like that. The process of listening to each other can take people into spaces they haven't visited for a while. So it can be important to have, like when you're doing a tasting of something and they give you something to clear your palate before you have the next taste. It's the same thing when you're doing a ceremony that's sharing. There needs to be a palate cleansing. There needs to be a grounding moment between you and then you and then you, unless you're working with people. Like I very rarely will do a grounding moment between things when I'm working with spiritual leaders, because you are used to moving emotional energy. So I feel like you're probably going to be okay, and I'm going to catch you if you're not. I'm going to see it on your face, or you're going to be empowered enough to speak to the fact that, whoa, hold on a minute, I need to hold on. That just got me. Before we go anywhere else, can I please just be in this moment? But other people don't have that ceremonial experience. People who don't have the kind of training we have don't have that. So that palate cleanse is a moment to say, thank you for what you just shared. Let's all take a moment, take that into our hearts, ground our feet, take a deep breath, and release. Now let's go to the next sharing. that stops you from hitting emotional overload because you're grounding, regrounding, regrounding. And that's very helpful for people. And of course, we can't talk about ceremony without talking about cultural sensitivity. So I have a unique perspective. Maybe it's not as unique as I think it is, but I recognize it as unique. And that perspective is that ceremony is the divine inspiration of the holy, and that we should do ceremony. We should learn from one another. We should learn cross cultures. We should share good ideas. If something works to help people live life in an easier, more comfortable, a more calm way, we should use whatever tools we can find. What we shouldn't do, in my opinion, is take other people's tools and use them when we don't understand them. So if you're going to do a sweat lodge, which can be a dangerous experience, you better spend some time studying with somebody who knows how to do that. And you better understand why you're doing it, how you're doing it, what the upside is and what the downside is, and make sure that you are able to catch somebody who has a difficult time. The sweat lodge can bring forth some really deep stuff. If you're going to do a candle lighting ceremony, on the other hand, it's good to, if you want to do, for example, in Hinduism, they do a blessing at Diwali where they fill a lamp with oil, put a wick in it and light it. And then they hold the lamp and they circle a person's face with the lamp. And it is a blessing of the light. May the light fill you. May the light be with you. May you feel the light, know the light, and know that you are one with the light. Those are my words. Those are not their words. But I have been to that ceremony. I know what it is. I have called before doing it a good friend who is Hindu and said, this is my interpretation. Here's how I would like to use this. Is it appropriate for me to do that in this environment? Is there anything else I should know? It's important for us to check on those things, to honor that sometimes there's a deeper reason for the way something is done. I'll go back to sweat lodge. Sweat lodge is for men. There are women who conduct women's sweat lodges, but they were originally for men to purify after coming back from the hunt or from a war, because women were known to purify every month through their bodily cycle. So what is the current teaching about that? What do you need to know about women in sweat lodge? How will you speak about that? Do you understand why things were done a certain way and what needs to be kept in mind and taught? When we take elements from other people's spiritual traditions, it's important to reach out and to make sure that we understand that we represent and speak to the culture that those traditions came from and honor the people who brought those traditions forward. It's very important that we not, that word appropriation is something I don't use often because for me, it's a great big word for something that can be done differently, that is about loving each other, crossing cultural boundaries toward the face of oneness and unity. So I don't like the word, and I don't like the way it's used as a weapon. And I see the importance of interacting with people who can teach us more when we want to use something. And that sensitivity is really important. Sacred practice changes individuals. It connects us. It marks our life transitions. It deepens our connection with the holy. And we as spiritual leaders have this powerful tool at our fingertips. And a lot of us are afraid to use it because we're afraid no one has tapped us on the head and said, bingo, you may do this ceremony. What gives me the right to do this? What if I mess it up? What if I forget something? What if? We all had that at our first wedding, right? We all had that. We all had that at our first memorial. It's like that for every single thing you do. There's a first time. If you want to make entering your sanctuary very deeply meaningful for people, have them line up outside and ask them to enter one at a time and to hold silence and ring a bell every time somebody crosses the threshold. Ring a chime, ring a bell every time they cross the threshold. You are coming into sacred space. Another person has come. Another person has come. Another person has come. Not only does it impact you at the door when you are announced into sacred space, but when you're sitting and every person who comes in is announced, the sound of that bell deepens you, deepens you, deepens you, deepens you into sacred intention. It's so simple and immensely powerful. So often sacred ceremony is about finding the simple thing that speaks to us through a different part of ourselves so that we have permission to go deeper. So if you need someone to give you permission, you have it. I'm giving you permission. You have it. If on behalf of the entirety of the universe, I give you permission, okay? And what I encourage is that you think in a creative way. People need experience right now. We have lots of words. We have so many words. We have so many words coming at us from so many sources. And we have an opportunity to offer something to people that lots of people can't give. You want to do a prayer for the election? Ring a bell as people come in, have them hold sacred space for peace before, during, and after this election. And speak about what peace means to them. Speak into a deeper place with them. Let them know that their connections are solid. To look around, that they can feel safe with one another when they don't always feel safe in the world. They need that. They need something that is so simple that their entire body can take it in, even for a moment. Because the world that we're living in is difficult right now. And sacred ceremony is such a powerful, powerful tool. So I am calling you to action as spiritual leaders to do more than talk about it, to incorporate rituals into your service, to look for ways to involve the entire senses of the people that you serve, to create opportunities for your community to engage in sacred ceremony. And I promise you, they'll ask you when you're doing the next one. Because experience means everything. So I want to look at the time. We have about 7 minutes. And I want to invite you, if you have a little ceremony of some kind, a big ceremony of some kind that you can encapsulate in a few words, I want to invite you. I've shared lots of ideas, but lots of people will watch this video besides those of us that are here. And if you have a ceremony that you do that you would like to share, I want to invite you to share your good ideas for ceremonies. Go ahead, Brenda.
I guess it's a ceremony. It came about haphazard, but anyway, this Sunday we are doing art in service. And so what I'm having people do is we have rocks and we have acrylic markers. And so we're going to have people write or draw on there some kind of positive message and then tell them to, leave that rock somewhere where somebody else can find it, especially during this time, so we can push positivity and higher vibrations out into the world. So
that's a beautiful ceremony. Beautiful intention. Who else? Okay. Jackie?
My head is kind of spinning, trying to decide. we do ceremony a lot. And right now, during our, hold on. Sorry, noise pollution. During our Fall Faith series, we're doing a book that has sacred, that's all about sacred ceremony from many different traditions. So we've been bringing more into the Sunday experience, which has been both a challenge and really fun. But I guess I'll just say the one that we do every year is create an ofrenda for Dia de los Muertos. And so we invite people to bring photographs, favorite items, food items, drink items of their beloveds who have passed. We are careful to include congregants who have maybe have passed away in the past year or two. And we take time during the service. So I, of course, will preset a lot of it. And then during the service, people will come forward and place their items. And this year, I'm hoping to be able to leave it up longer. Usually we just leave it for the Sunday and for a few hours after service. But I'm hoping to start it on Friday this year. So we're working those logistics out.
Nice, nice. I love that, like, for all the reasons I said earlier. I just think that's such a powerful connection for people to remember and to honor and to laugh and to, to think more about what did the people who came before me love? How would they celebrate? How would they like to be celebrated? Than just to remember that they're not there. So, and such a beautiful and a great example of cultural integration, right? That everyone can participate, and at the same time, the historical culture of it can be shared and learned and experienced. Yeah, I love that. Anything else you guys would like to share? All right, then. I'm going to say thank you for being here, and I will look forward to seeing you on the first Wednesday of November when we have our next gathering. And I will still be here for that gathering. I don't know what the date is. I'll have to look. I fly out on the 6th. If that's a Wednesday, I might have to make an adjustment. But I am here in San Miguel in Mexico. And then we'll be going to Italy. So it'll be a different time of day when I'm gathering. It'll be still your time, but a different time of day when I'm gathering from there. And then on to Uganda and on to Bali. So, the set behind me is going to change. But I love this, don't you? The magic that we can do this from all over the world is pretty amazing. And I don't want to ever be less than awed by the fact that we can be thousands of miles apart and bring our hearts together like this. And I just so appreciate all of you and the amazing work that you do in the world. And am so honored to have this time with you and to support the good that you do. So thanks so much. Have a beautiful week. I'll see you soon.